In 1977, John Sarunian sold his company to Rockwell International, Western Wheels, and decided he wanted to race top fuel boats. He went to Sanger Jack Davidson and talked to him about getting a hull. Sanger had some prototype hulls that he was working with, and later on that day, John had a hull. So he decided he was going to get with Ed Pink, who was the premier engine builder of that time, and he got him to partner up with him, and he was actually part of his racing team. And he and Keith Black, who worked with Ed, would prepare 5 to 6 engines. And one of the rules that Tom Wright, the crew chief for Western Mag's special team, told me was that every single race they would change the engine. And that was a standing rule that was never to be broken. The engine may be fine, but they would determine if it was damaged or hurt during the week after the race. They brought enough engines to last the entire amount of time through the finals if they made it that far. That was a very big change in drag racing at the day, because it was in an era where people were racing, 2 or 3 people would get together and field a race boat and would be competing and doing their best. It was not of a time when people would pull up with a semi-truck with 6 engines in bags ready dynoed to install and could be done in 20 to 30 minutes between races. That revolutionized drag boat racing, and the current drag boat racing is much more like that. That's just like it is in the NHRA in cars. Many engines are brought to the race. That's kind of how the Western Mag Special team revolutionized boat racing back in their day. Needless to say, their first year, 1978, they won the National Drag Boat Association High Points Championship. First year. That's pretty amazing. Kenny West was the driver. After that year, they raced successively other years, and they had some wins, and they did some other things, but that first year was a special year, and everything came together for them. Later on in history, I believe the year was 1982, Kenny West was involved in a catastrophic wreck, which eventually cost him his life. He was injured very badly in the wreck and expired about 30 to 40 days later, I guess, in an automobile accident near Bass Lake. But John was never quite the same after that, and he wanted to not be involved in drag boat racing much after that event. The Western Mag Special was basically lost to history. It was painted, it was sold, and nobody really knew what happened to that boat. Years later, I happened to be very fortunate to purchase a nice race boat. I've owned the boat now for about 7 to 8 years, and I've always been interested in making the boat fast. I didn't want a very pretty boat with a fancy paint job that was slow, so I put my money in the engine. So I just had a very nice hull that people would look at and they'd say, boy, this hull is very unique. Look at this, and look at that, and look at this. No other boats are built like this. And we can actually photograph some of the things that I'm talking about, and you can see the tremendous amount of bracing and struts to withstand 3,000 or 3,500 horsepower of the day to go over 200 miles an hour safely. Anyway, years after I got the boat and I had built the engine and was satisfied with the performance, my wife, being in medicine, said, I want you to have a pretty boat too. So we took it in and we were going to have a paint job, and I could have anything I wanted. I took it to Brian and Jim Dunn of Who Done It in Madeira, And they looked at that hull one time, and they were Top Fuel racers. And they said, there's something's unique about this, Dave. We need to find out a little bit more about this boat. We have a feeling that there must be something here. Meanwhile, they're starting to prep it for paint. So they're prepping and sanding and doing different things, and they start seeing a few things that look like there's numbers and things underneath. Well, to make a long story short, we found out that we're uncovering the Western Mag Special. And he called me one day and he said, David, are you sitting down? And I said, yeah. He said, you have the Western Mag Special. So I wanted to verify it beyond a shadow of a doubt. So we brought Larry Schwabenlander and Harold Kinsvater, and many of the people met up with us over at Whodunit. And we looked at it and checked things out and looked at DMV records and Sanger Jack's big book. And indeed, this is the boat. So we painted it to match what it was in the day. The candy colors are much more brilliant. The pearls are much better. The paint's much better. However, the lettering and the style and all those kind of things are just the way that it was done back in the day it was racing. In fact, Dickie, the crew member, the race team crew member who did the lettering, I commissioned to do the lettering for the boat for me. So he was also very involved. So I try to get people who were part of that team as much as possible to consult with me and rebuild it back to what it was, because it's a piece of history, a retired world champion. Recently I spoke with Tom Wright, like I'd mentioned, and he gave me quite a bit of other information. Larry Schwabenlander, Harold, the list is long of people that have helped me identify and enjoy this boat. And I'm hoping that documenting and putting some of this information down helps promote the industry, because drag boat racing is something very important now and in the future. This is a huge strut, a half-inch thick plate that joins the two main struts together. This is the main strength of the boat back near the propeller, where the power is actually and the water are meeting. Notice these struts here, more strength. Now we need to move up towards the front of the boat, and this is where the engine is driving the V-drive unit. In this V-drive, it comes and takes the force of the engine this way, converts it to gears, and sends it back out the prop shaft. And it has to be very beefy. Notice these huge braces. Not only do you have this main cross brace, which is something all boats have, but it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 separate braces. That's just because it has so much power. Designed a tank system that has its two stages to it. There's 3.5 gallons of alcohol here, separated by 3.5 gallons of nitromethane on this side. So what we do, there's a valve system and two different feeds to the main feed line. We will start the engine on alcohol and then convert it to nitromethane once it's achieved temperature, and that way it's a lot easier on the engine once it's ready to accept nitro. If you just give nitro to a cold engine, that's hard on it.
This one was
big boat, 25 foot. Huh. Yeah, that's a huge boat when it fuel.
They had a 21 foot.